Number 2. My entire life, I have always had experiences with the paranormal, but this story is by far the creepiest. It's about when I was young, about 4 or 5, and I lived in an old house. I lived with my mum and dad, and because of my mum having me at a young age, we lived in quite a rubbish house. It was an old house, and it was in very bad condition. Anyway, my parents told me about why we actually moved out of that house and started living with my grandparents. It turns out that it's because of all the things I told them about and what I saw in the house, but especially because of Charlie. I used to sit near the bedroom door and stare into the gap between the door and the wall when it was open, just enough to be able to see in when you're looking directly at it, but if you were anywhere else, you couldn't see in. I used to walk past and just walk closer and closer until I would jump back and run away screaming. My parents said that I was always too scared to tell them what I saw, but all they knew is that I was really scared. I used to have this friend in the house that lived in the wardrobe. I called him Charlie. I don't remember him, but my parents said that I used to sit in front of the wardrobe and just talk for a long time. And every time my parents came by and asked who I was talking about, I would just say, "Charlie says that I shouldn't talk to you about him." And frankly, that used to scare my mum a lot. I had a bed in my parents' room, so I would always be there when they came to bed. A lot of the time, when my parents actually came to bed, I would be looking at their bed and not saying a thing, until my mum tried to get into bed, and I would scream. She would ask why, and I always replied, "You're going to hurt Charlie." So eventually, my mum would ask me before she got into bed if Charlie was there, and if he was, she wasn't allowed to go back to sleep until he got tired and went back into the wardrobe, which would sometimes take a few hours where he would just be staring at me or my mum. And this is not the only thing that I saw in the bedroom. What really freaked my mum out was what I called the hurt mummy and her baby. I used to see what I told my mum was a lady holding her baby in the corner of the room. She was sitting down and she was bleeding, and this would happen often enough that my parents and I started to sleep downstairs. To try and stop me from talking to Charlie, my mum started to lock the bedroom door whenever she wasn't in, but I was still able to talk to him. And what made matters worse, I told my mum she made him angry by trying to stop us talking. I also told her that now he just watches us at night and he sleeps during the day to make sure we won't leave in the night like his last family did. What was really creepy about this is that the last people who rented the house left very abruptly one night and they didn't return. As a kid, I didn't know any of this. And this is what made my parents and I really question things. But I think what the final straw was that finally made my parents move is what I told my mum about what Charlie wanted to do. I said that he told me these exact words. I only know this because my mum said that it was something that scared her so much that she couldn't forget about it. Charlie apparently said that we needed to stay there forever. I asked him why we would leave in the first place, and he told me that it was because of the baby. I said, "Why can't we stay with the baby?" And he thought that this was a great idea. He said that he wanted to make sure that we stay forever, like the other mum and her baby, the one that I saw in the corner all the time. I said to my mum, "Isn't that great, Mummy? We get to stay here forever." And at that point, I ran over and hugged my mum with the most demonic grin she'd ever seen on a kid. It turns out that my mum, she was pregnant and she was planning to move to a bigger house, and we sure did move. In fact, we actually left later that day. We were able to put most of our furniture in my grandparents' garage except the wardrobe. About a month later, I asked my mum why we left Charlie back at the house and when we could go to get him. My mum explained to me that Charlie was not a nice person and that I was never going to see him again. I totally freaked out and I started to scream at her, stuff like, "How could you do this, and do you even love me?" But by far the worst thing that I said was, "I wish I let Charlie hurt you and my brother." 7 months later, my mum, she had a little boy, and I'm glad to say I never saw Charlie again. Number 1. So back in the 80s, I used to work at one of those all-night diners you've seen in every horror movie ever made. I was the guy who worked in the kitchen, and Linda, later to become my wife, was the waitress who worked nights with me. The pay was good, considering that often I would only need to cook about 3 meals a night. Not bad for a chef. That is, if you like sitting back and just watching TV. Now, Linda is a strong girl. A few years back, she had shouted me through to the front. A guy had made sexual comments to her, pulled out a knife and threatened her to get the money out of the cash register, or he would kill her. When I came through, I found him unconscious on the floor. Linda had clocked him on the side of the head with hot coffee. She burnt her hand pretty good, but she smiles when people ask about her scars. Anyway, on with the story. It was late October and another really slow night. It got to 3 a.m. and that's when the good TV usually ended. That is, unless you had cable. So I was sitting playing cards when Linda came in and she looked really shocked. She asked me to come through and to bring a knife. I came through to the front to see a man bleeding from his head and one of his arms. He was standing there in the middle of the room looking like he didn't know where he was. I asked him,
"Son, are you okay? Your arm. Do you want me to call 911?
He didn't even blink though. He just carried on, looking around, dazed. I noticed at this point that he was holding a knife. I could see it, shining in his pocket. I gripped mine harder. One thing about getting into a knife fight with a cook, my knife will always be bigger. I gripped it properly like I'd been taught in the army, to aim upwards, stab, and cut upwards. It's a messy job, but it's an irreversible wound. You could stab someone like this in an emergency operation room with the world's best doctors on standby, and they still couldn't save you. In short, if he tried anything, I was going to paint the floor red. But this is when things got really weird. There was a flash and a weird sound, and then this guy fell to the floor, clutching his arm in pain. He was shedding tears from the pain. Then it happened again. This time, I saw what was like a spark coming from his arm. He flinched and let out some more cries of pain. Linda and I, we were frozen, trying to work out what the fuck was going on. Then, without warning, he takes out the knife and plunged it into his arm. At this point, he's literally crying in pain, shaking all over, and there's a long line of blood flowing across the tiled floor. He was digging the knife into the same spot in his arm over and over, like he was trying to pick a bullet out. There was another flash, and he flinched, accidentally throwing the knife across the floor. Linda ran out and grabbed it, and I took it off of her, and I told her to call an ambulance and to make sure that they send the police too. This guy was obviously very unwell. When Linda was gone, there were some more flashes, and more weird sparks coming from his arm. Eventually, he muttered,
"You don't understand."
And I felt bad for him. He sounded like he just wanted to cry. He started to get up and walk out. I should have thought to stop him, but honestly, out of shock, I just watched him. Police showed up half an hour later, and we gave our statements. After which, Linda told me that she was cleaning the floor and just turned to see this guy. He was looking around, whispering to himself,
"Not again, please. Leave me alone, please."
When the police came and they took our statements, Linda nearly assaulted them when they told her that she would have to clean up the blood. And the next day, we got a call. This guy was found floating in a river. He had allegedly thrown himself off of a bridge. The officer asked me if I had any idea why his pockets were stuffed full of paper clips and push pins, some of which were apparently stuck into his legs. He died without ever being known. He was buried a John Doe and never, to my knowledge at least, was identified. It's easy to disregard this as him being mental, but Linda and I have never been able to explain those freaky sparks. I've heard loads of theories, from alien implants to freak weather conditions, but I'm not sure what to believe. G'day mates, it's B-Buster here. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video guys. And I guess with a ghost like that in the house, you could say that they moved house to lift their spirits. Alright, I'll stop. I know this is painful for you guys. Thanks again to the Hive members that bravely shared their story for us all here. And I hope you're all doing really well. For the chance to have your story feature in a video, you can send your story to my email, which is in the description below. And as always guys, keep them coming, as this channel relies upon your stories to continue. Also, please do me a favor and just state in your email what your story is about in the description, and also provide me with a short written statement of consent, just so that I can be above board with everything. And also, please remember to tell me in the email if you would like to remain anonymous, and please change any names if you don't want particular names to be shared. So guys, Valentine's Day is coming up very quickly, and I was hoping to put out a video for the season. If you guys have any scary stories about terrible dating experiences, love horror stories, or just a creepy Valentine's story, be sure to send it to me so that I can share it with the Hive. And as always guys, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates throughout the week. You can also catch me on my second channel, all of which have links in the description below. Thanks again for always tuning in guys, for all the love and support. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I'll see you mates in the next one.